What's up, Max? Steven here from Powell's Power Ups. This is your overview video for your 89 Sabers Darth Maul replica lightsabers. So you sent them to me. They were done by someone else previously. You weren't too happy with the results and you wanted them reinstalled. So I have reinstalled them and now they are ready to rock. First, when you open up your box, you got your paper here with all the instructions on how to operate it, much like you used to operate all your other Profi board lightsabers. Not much has changed at all. Keep this handy though, that way you know how to operate them. So here they are. So as we've discussed previously, I did drill the holes in the coupler to make those bigger so you have more sound venting. We also originally had 22 millimeter speakers in these, and now we have 28 millimeter speakers, 2 watt, 4 ohm silver speakers from the Saber Merchant, extremely loud, one of the loudest on the market. And then in the emitters, you had version 2 NPXL connectors from Stock Custom Works. One of them had some LEDs out, so we've swapped both of those out. Now we have version 3 NPXL connectors with 16 LEDs per connector there. I've also went through and downloaded all of the fonts with their blade styles onto both of these Profi boards, like we discussed. Both are identical. You also get a Ziploc baggie with 2 Allen wrenches in it. The smaller Allen wrench is for your blade retention screws. The bigger Allen wrench is for your chassis retention screws, but we're about to go over that here in a second, so I'll keep that set aside. So both of these are identical, but I will open up both of them just to show you. One of them I'll break down step by step, and the other one I'll just open up. So we'll start with one of them. We'll just do step by step. So to open up these lightsabers, you screw off the emitter just like you previously did. Take it up and off, and that will expose the top of your chassis. So there's our Stock Custom Work NPXL connector, 16 LEDs, nice and bright. All of them working. To remove your chassis and be able to access the battery and the Profi board, you need to do this step. So you need to unscrew your screws. So your buttons, your buttons are actually thumb screws. You can actually unscrew them. They actually come up out of there. I'll do the silver one first, and then the red one. So as you can see here, these are just little plunger switches, right? And then underneath the holes there, you have your brass tactile switches. Now the chassis is held securely in place by this top screw here, this one right here. The bigger Allen wrench, which is actually a normal size Allen wrench, is what you use to loosen that set screw there, and then you can just remove your chassis just like before. This is just a hollow shell. Now we got 28 millimeter speaker there on the bottom, like discussed. 2 watt, 4 ohm from the Saber Merchant, super loud. Here we have your 18650 lithium ion battery, 3000 milliamp hours. Negative side goes against the spring side. Do not put your battery in backwards, you could fry your electronics. The wires from the speaker and the negative side of the battery terminal run down in a channel underneath the battery to the Profi board. They're fine. When you put the battery in, it will push those wires down inside the channel. But I'm going to keep the battery out for now. I'll show you the Profi board. Sits nice and flush, sits down inside the chassis there. If you don't need to get it up for anything, but if you needed to, you just use something like your Allen wrench. Slowly on one of the corners, just kind of pry it up like so. Then you can see there it's lifted. You can get out your SD card. You can plug up micro USB if you need to. And then when you're done, you just press it back down inside of the chassis so it sits under like that, nice and flush. Okay, on top there, we talked about your NPXL connector. Here on the back side, we have our 2 brass tactile switches. And then this channel here is for the channel that your switches sit in. But the switches have to come out whenever you're inserting your chassis and taking it out, because the speaker itself is as big as the chassis. So that's the purpose of taking the buttons out, so that we could have a 28mm speaker. If you wanted to keep those buttons in like they had before, you would have had to had a smaller speaker. So that's what that looks like. Pop the battery in.
At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge.
You got your twist on, right, and twist off. This is the Profi boards version 5.9 with all the gesture controls. To put it back in, we're just gonna line up the holes for the switches with the holes, or with the tactile switches like that. So we're gonna line those up. Once we get them lined up as best we can, like you see here, tighten down the set screw. Not super tight though, just tight enough to hold the chassis in place. It is a 3D printed chassis. It's matte black, by the way, if you didn't notice. And you don't want to press so hard that you crack or damage the chassis. Once you put the battery in, these pins are electrically charged. Make sure you don't touch anything metal with them. You could short and fry all your electronics, so be very mindful of that as you're inserting into the emitter right here. When you thread this on, do not thread super tight. Just thread down to where it's secure and then stop. Because it's pushing into the chassis, and this set screw is holding that all in place. So it's secure now like that. Screw in your red thumb screw. When you screw these back in, just screw them in to where they stop. Don't try to super tighten them, or they'll get stuck in there and they're hard to get out. So just like that. So the other one, I already have the battery in and everything. I'll just take it out and show you that it works. Turn this one up. There they are, man. They are done. Now, I don't have full blades to do a demo with, but I do have your Yoda blade right here. This 24-inch one. I can pop that in just to show you that it works. Loosen up the blade retention screw. Whoops. Oh, the blade plug. I forgot to take the blade plug out. I was like, why isn't it igniting? So there's a nice, beautiful NeoPixel blade.
I sense your terror. I am Sith. Formerly Darth. Now just more.
You have your passive blade, passive battery monitor between all of the fonts.
Young.
You have all the fonts on there that, you know, that you wanted. And a lot of the ones that you already had on there before.
Only a Sith. Persistence in the...
Rey Skywalker.
This part is over.
As you see, my Jedi powers are far beyond yours.
Ooh, I love Dooku's. Hear that? It's so thuddy. All right, so there's your lightsabers. They are complete. I will get these all boxed up tonight and probably get them shipped out to you in the mail tomorrow. I got a lot of other stuff to ship out too. Anyways, thanks for choosing me again to do your install. I think we're checking a few off your list, but I think we got a few more, so hit me up.